Ah, Christmas. A time of giving, a time of family, and of course, video games. Some of my favorite video game memories come from opening video games on Christmas. And some of my favorite gifts I received were Pokémon-like. See, Mr. Ferguson, I can come up with words too.
The late 90s and early 2000s were the epitome of what I like to call the capture and customize critter craze. Everywhere you looked, there was a brand doing something similar to the trainer-tamer concept. The standouts, of course, were Pokemon and Digimon.
Everyone knows what Pokemon is, and as of August 2021, it's the best-selling franchise to date. But unless you're into Digimon or Pokemon, not many people really know that they're quite different ideas.
A Pokemon trainer starts their journey at around age 10, gets their starter Pokemon, is sent out to catch them all, and then documents the different species. In Digimon, however, the tamers are chosen for their personal qualities and are transported to the digital world alongside their partner Digimon to stop evil and thwart destruction. Effects of the digital world and even Digimon themselves can begin to seep through to the real world. I would consider Digimon to be more PG-13 than Pokemon, as it's more violent and deals with subjects such as divorce, bullying, blame, and even death.
Where Pokemon was a game franchise that eventually became this merchandise empire, Digimon was a Tamagotchi spin-off that actually was aimed at boys and focused on battling rather than the raising or caring aspect. Today I want to go over some of the more obscure capture and customized franchises that I and maybe like 4 other of you grew up with, and they weren't very popular today, let alone when they were out. So let's take a look at the first gift. Not like I already know what they are. Metabots is so cool. Metabots are so cool. Those of us that grew up with the series understand that ancient and primal desire to have a little robot buddy and customize them with weapons and armor and then send them out onto the playground to do battle. And then eventually the next day go to school and show off your medal collection.
Metabots started off as a series of video games in Japan, but in the West we got the show first, so for now I'll refer to the North American times of release. The first series follows 10-year-old Icky and his ambition to compete in the World Row Battle Tournament and be the champion. Though Icky can't afford a Metabot at first, he eventually earns enough to settle for an older Metabee model fitted with the mysterious Kabuto medal he finds in the river. Much to Icky's dismay, Metabee has a major attitude problem and they're constantly butting heads, though when it comes down to it, they seem to get it together during battles.
We first got the show here in the States in 2001, and then a year later got the first of only 3 Metabots games that we would ever get in the US. Metabots for GBA. This is actually Meta Rot 2 in Japan, and like Pokemon, came in 2 versions. This is the Metabee version.
Though the story is very minimal, the main draw of the game is combat and customization. The intro is awesome. It shows off some really sick pixel art emblematic of the GBA era, and then the title screen surprisingly has a theme song in really good quality.
In the show, Metabots are controlled by the Meta Watch, or Meta Roch in Japan. They can store different medals and even teleport the Metabot to the Meta Fighter's location.
The Watch is the main way the fighters customize their robots and communicate orders during battles. The concept is just so cool, and my 9-year-old self always wanted one, alongside the Tiger Pokedex and the Pocket Pikachu. The amount of customization and stats and min-maxing in the game is nuts. Medals determine the proficiencies with certain meta parts. The Kabuto medal is proficient in using shooting parts and automatically targets enemy strike or melee parts. Combat is interesting. You give the Metabot orders between turns and set them off to execute the commands automatically. Whatever bot reaches the middle barrier quickest gets to attack first, so it's a good idea to customize your Metabot with leg parts fitted for a certain terrain type, and in turn will usually reach the barrier quicker. Choosing attacks depends on the parts equipped, and of the options, one of them is the ability to charge your bot's Metaforce, the ultimate attack. Battles happen at random, which is a little odd in my opinion, as combat lasts longer than a traditional random encounter in a standard RPG like Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest. But just like in a traditional RPG, victory grants experience points for your medal, which evolves to different forms, giving the user access to more Metaforce powers, and you also get new parts for customization.
The following 2 years, Metabots fans were treated to 2 more games. Metabots AX, which also came in 2 versions, and the first and last home console Metabot game, Metabots Infinity.
Metabots AX is a fighting game of all things, and this time you take direct control of Metabots, though it does take some time to get used to. The head part's action is up plus attack, while the left arm weapon is down plus attack. Metabots Infinity, on the other hand, was universally panned for its terrible camera controls and unbalanced combat. Seems like the kind of game that deserves its own video.
Next game. Ooh, Biomotor Unitron. Developed by SNK, the Neo Geo Pocket Color was released as a competitor to the Game Boy Color, though it fell to the shoulders of SNK themselves to develop games since it lacked a lot of third-party support. The coolest thing, aside from an internal system menu, which not a lot of consoles had at the time, let alone on a handheld, was an 8-directional D-pad. It feels and sounds so cool. But my game of choice is this little game, Biomotor Unitron.
Long ago, there was a war that would have led the planet of Elsea to total ruin had it not been for the arrival of a meteor that contained a material called Unitron. That's uni with a hyphen, tron. From this material, the nations built customizable machines called, you guessed it, Unitrons. That's Unitron without a hyphen. The robots helped to usher in an era of peace, and now people from all over the planet come to the kingdom of Rahafies to compete in the Unitron tournament and be declared the Master of Masters. The game is a traditional turn-based dungeon crawler RPG, and at the start, players can choose from a few different races where the chosen race determines your starting Unitron fit. At the hub city, players can develop new weapons and armor, customize their Unitron with materials found in the surrounding dungeons, interact with other NPCs, and visit shops. But as always, the fun part is exploration and combat. There are 4 different dungeon locations you can travel to from the world map: the forest, the sea level, the ruins, and the maze.
There is a final dungeon, however, but to unlock it, you need to attain the Master of Master rank in the Unitron competition.
Actually, it's just a turn-based system. However, the attacks you choose from are determined by the equipped arm weapons, just like in Metabots, and each weapon uses up a certain number of EP, the ability cost in this game. The stronger the attack, the more EP it uses. Each dungeon has a certain affinity where the enemies there will be weak to an opposing affinity. The fire affinity trumps the wood affinity, etc.
Overall, Biomotor Unitron has some really unique concepts, but where it lacks in variety, it makes up for it in charm. Next game. Demi-Kids. Ever heard of a little-known series that actually not a lot of people know about? It's called Shin Megami Tensei, developed by a little-known company not a lot of people really care about, called Atlas. No? Me either. Jokes aside, the Megami Tensei series, or more specifically the spin-off series Persona, to me is the big boy Pokemon. It deals with concepts such as murder and suicide. But the gameplay largely revolves around collecting monsters, fusing them to create new monsters, and obviously combat. It goes without saying that Atlas also tried to capitalize on the monster collecting craze with their own kid-friendly version, Demi-Kids. I have the dark version, and like Pokemon, also came in 2 versions, dark and light. But unlike Pokemon, there are major story differences between the 2 versions, much like the Golden Sun games. Yes. That was a part that I was so worried I wouldn't be able to get through.
Devil Children is the 2000 Japanese release on the Game Boy Color, but the first time the West got it was 4 years later on the Game Boy Advance in the form of Demi-Kids. The plot revolves around the dark version protagonist Akira getting transported to the demon world Dem, and alongside his monster allies tries to shut the time rifts that open up all over the place, threatening the existence of both the real world and the demon world. Don't be fooled. This game is tough. It's incredibly grindy and extremely unforgiving. Just look at these cute little fairy monsters. My team is max health, and look at the damage I'm doing compared to it. Gosh dang it. Okay, luckily I've got a lava rat to finish them off, and done.
I'm sure by today's standards, the intense difficulty right off the bat from the start of the game would turn off a lot of gamers, but this was a time period when we were all hardened by the Kingdom Hearts Proud Mode and the legendary difficulties. Underneath this, though, is a nearly forgotten bit of Atlas history. Now we come to the epitome of what I think is the best of the best in the genre. Mega Man Battle Network 6. It's the 6th version. 6th.
Originally released in 2001 as a tactical spin-off in an alternate Mega Man timeline, the theme revolves around an advancement in computing achievements rather than robotics. Everything has become interconnected by the net, and therefore virtually everything, no pun intended, happens on the net. Commerce, communication, and even crime.
In the future, we're going to have PETs, not furry little critters running around, rather clean digital assistants. PETs. Pets. Personal Information Terminals. Here's the first iteration of the PET. It's based off of the first game in the series. You put battle chips up on top, which represent different attacks and abilities. And we got different iterations along the later on, but one that always eluded me was the Link PET. It had a touchscreen and a rewritable, readable, writable kind of chip that allowed you to save your progress. And it's extremely rare and super expensive, and I don't think I'd ever find one.
But enough about the toys. The game follows the adventures of Lan Hikari and this universe's version of Mega Man, EXE, or Mega Man EXE, though Lan just calls him Mega Man. Exploration is divided up into two sections. The real world as Lan, where you encounter different computers or tech to be able to jack in to browse around and explore the components. The second form of exploration is as Mega Man, after jacking into a port.
Everything in the world has been connected by computers, and I mean everything, from computers to kitchen appliances.
Even the dogs are connected to the net. Anyway, as Mega Man, battle encounters happen at random while traversing the net, which is the best part of the game. Set as a left and right 2D battlefield, combat consists of 18 zones divided up as two sections of 9. The right side is the area where we get full control of Mega Man, and the left side is the enemy virus territory. It becomes a game of skill and accuracy as you get access to the Mega Buster and different battle chips. Combat occurs in rounds. There's a meter bar at the top that indicates an opportunity to pause combat and select a new set of battle chips. It's very much a deck building action RPG. At the beginning of battle, you'll select your starting battle chips, or essentially your starting hand. Some chips possess attacks like guns and swords, while others provide healing abilities or shields and barriers.
There are even some chips that take rows from the enemy side, adding them to your own, effectively making the available space to move around larger, and then decreasing the enemy's area so that you can get in for close combat attacks or even full explosion damage. I've always had a soft spot for these type of games. You befriend critters, you raise them up to be powerful allies, and since the era I grew up in was the epitome of these type of games, the 90s and 2000s will be fondly looked upon not just by me, but by many others as well. Dragon Quest monsters, anyone? But until next time, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I'll see you later.